Hey guys, Stealth here. Today we're looking at a Eurocorp Airborne deck. It's been ages since I reviewed one of these, so let's have a look. It was sent in by Welsh101, and he says that the main aim for this deck is to do quick land grabs, as you're doing with any airborne deck, but it also has an emphasis on flanking around using air superiority fighters until heavier AA can arrive. I think that the air superiority fighter that you have in the deck, as we can see a couple of them here, two Rafales at Elite and a couple of F4F KWS are the heaviest AA that you can get. I mean, they're not ground-based AA, but they're going to be outperforming anything that we can see in the support section for now. He's going to be using bombers instead of artillery. That's because we don't get any artillery, so flanking around and making sure that the enemy airspace or air defenses are down is critical. That's why there's the Tornado ECR in here. He said he had some luck using it on the back to Incheon map to break stalemates by going over the water mid-game when everyone's focus is somewhere else. He was made a point at some flaws and room for improvement, and a special note is for the Alpha bomber, or the Alpha jet, which is the napalm bomber. He said I went with this one over the other one because I work on them, so please try and keep them in. Okay, so I'll not be touching the Alpha jet. Now in logistics, you don't get a lot of options logistics-wise. You just get transport choppers and FOBs, that's it. No resupply vehicles in the sense of trucks. What he went with is a couple of Puma 330L logistics, and then some, he went with two of those, so 16 of these large helicopters, and a couple of these is another alternative that you have. You can go with 3 of these per card, or with 8 of these helicopters. Difference is that these things transport almost 4 times the amount of supplies per card or per unit. So this will give you 8,000 units of supplies. These things will give you slightly more. They're going to give you 1,100 units of supplies, and that is significant because it means that you'll be getting 3,000 points of supplies more. So with that in mind, I'm going to go for the 53G. I'll be flying these in and out of the FOB pretty often to resupply smaller points and set up these guys as a sort of temporary forward operating base to make sure that my helicopters don't have to fly all the way back to base as they're being refueled, repaired and rearmed. Now command vehicle wise, he went with the Puma 330B. This is definitely something I'm going to change as I don't like command helicopters. I don't think they are the right choice for any deck because you cannot hide these things. They cannot land in forests. The one advantage that they have is that they're fast at 250 kph. Or okay, fast-ish, because there are faster command helicopters or stuff like the Panther, which is going to drop off command infantry. You do get 6 of them, but that's pretty much their only redeeming quality. I am going to throw them out and instead go with the VAB PC. That does only give me 4 command vehicles, and it does not give me the capacity to quickly jump to a forward position. So if that's something that you want to do with this deck, go for a command infantry in either the Panther or the Dornier 205. But definitely preference for the Panther because it's a lot faster. I'm going to go for the VAB because I want to keep this thing a little bit all round. And with this I get some armor, I get a nice amount of maneuverability and autonomy, and even a machine gun, but we're not really going to use that thing. Infantry wise, everything that you see here is airlifted. Starting off from the left side, we got 6 Mistrals, great AA units, and they're being brought in by Puma 330H, so this is the one without the autocannon. The Puma 330H Pirate is the one with the autocannon. And I would use the Puma 330 for the more exclusive or more frontline troops, and that's what he went with here. So the Puma 330H, just a standard transport helicopter, is the right choice here. Then some ATGM-LN F3s. You do of course get some ATGMs on your helicopters, but defending a town with these guys is going to be helpful, even though they don't have a great range. But they do have a very high armor penetration. They have a 2-man strength, so they go down pretty quick. And their off-road speed is bad at only 15. Of course, they have to carry all these missiles, so let's say that that's the cause. I am going to go with these guys, mostly because I don't really need slots for anything else. Then he has a couple of Commando Marines, 2 cards of these, one in the Panther. This is probably for the quick land grab because they travel at 300 kph. Pirates are a little bit slower at 250, but they have an autocannon versus the rocket pods that are carried by the Panther. Now I like both helicopters. The Pirate is better at fire support versus infantry, and the Panther is better at destroying vehicles and really being quick to arrive at the scene. So in this situation, the Commando Marines are very expensive because you have a 40-point infantry unit and a 30-point helicopter. But for quick land grabs, these guys will do very, very nicely. So definitely going with the Panther, and as a second line or as a second wave, we're going to go with the Pirate. If you want a couple more Commando Marines and you don't mind losing the Pirate, you can always go for the standard Puma 330. It's going to shave off another 5 points of your transport cost, and you get 8 of these. I do like the Pirate, but I also like the availability and the strength that the Commando Marines have, so I'm going to switch this and make sure that I now have 14 Commando Marines. Next up, he has Sapeurs, the flamethrowing infantry from France, again in the Panther, making them pretty damn expensive. And unless you want to use these guys for quick land grabs, I would not put them in the Panther, because the Panther is a very expensive helicopter. Twice as expensive as the infantry that you're transporting. So what I'm going to do instead is go with the Puma 330. Let's see, these guys were at veteran, so availability wise it doesn't matter, unlike for example the Commando Marines that we just replaced. Then we went, Welsh went with a couple of Legion 90s. Very good infantry units. They have a nice amount of weapons. They got the FAMAS, the Mini-Me and the Erix. Now the Erix has a 1000 meter range, so don't expect these things to hit as far away as for example the ATGM LAN F3. But if they hit something, they're going to do a ton of damage to it because it has 25 armor penetration and even better accuracy than the ATGM LAN F3. He's transporting these guys in the Pirate again. Let's see if it matters for availability. And yep, it definitely does, but you're going to lose the Pirate, which again is something that is going to be a trade-off. Do you want more infantry but lose the autocannon? Then go for the Puma. I think that with 68 infantry units we should have enough, so in this case let's just stick with the Pirate. Then he went with Chasseur 85, which have a decent selection of weapon, and these regular troops, so line infantry, are going to be not as good as Commando Marines or Fallschirmjäger or Fallschirmjäger 90 of course at capturing towns, but they can be a decent support force for Legionnaires, seeing as they're not as expensive, 15 points versus 25, and their transport's only 20 points, so for 35 points you have a air mobile infantry unit, which I think is helpful. You can quickly jump into any gap, capture any town that you want to. You don't unfortunately get the Legionnaires, the Panzer Grenadiers in this deck. It is something that is exclusive to German or Eurocorp mechanized motorized decks. So we're going to have to do it without those guys, but we do get a lot of Fallschirmjäger. He went with 6 elite Fallschirmjäger in the CH-53G. Very fast helicopter, 320, is one of the fastest in the game. And combine some Fallschirmjäger with their very high-end anti-tank weapon with, for example, Commando Marine, which are also excellent at dealing damage to infantry and vehicles alike, and you're going to have a very, very potent force. Just keep in mind that none of these guys, unlike for example the SAS or the LSTR-40s, carry any AA missiles. So helicopters or aircraft are going to be a very big problem for your commandos. He went with the Fallschirmjäger 90, 6 of those, and then 8 Fallschirmjäger base, if you will, at the elite level. Now these are slightly more cheap. They are 45 points versus 55. Their weaponry is a bit inferior, if you want to call it that. You can see that the Fallschirmjäger 90 get an assault rifle, where the Fallschirmjäger base get an SMG. Their anti-tank weapon is worse. 70% accuracy 24 versus 55 and 16. The rate of fire on both weapons is the same, but the suppression on the Fallschirmjäger base is a bit lower. The machine gun they carry is the same, so the Fallschirmjäger base are pretty much a slightly inferior version. and they're a nice assistance force for the Volkswagen 90. So that covers the infantry tab. Some slight adjustments that I made here, as you saw, mostly transport wise and availability wise, but I think that he has enough infantry and a good variety of them. If you feel that your airborne deck doesn't have enough AA capacity, because in the support we only got the Roland 2 and the Crotal, you could go for another card of AA. Unfortunately, we do have another card of Mistrals, so you can use another card of these if you feel that your AA is a bit low. Now, as I mentioned, not a lot of stuff in the support tab. We got the FRR Roland 2, very fast and mobile units, mostly because they're wheeled vehicles, but you're going to sacrifice all armor. These things are completely unarmored, and that means that they are going to go down very quickly. Thank God for mortars in this deck. Although they're not great mortars, you can take some shots at some low armored vehicles. Keep in mind though that they have 2 HE power, not 5 or 4 as you might be used to from normal mortars. But what you can do is put up smoke screens with them, although the range to do that is only 4,200 meters. So as long as you keep that in mind, and as long as you bring in a nice amount of them, because the amount of smoke that they create is also quite a bit lower than normal mortars, you're going to have a nice support force for your infantry. Then he has 6 Crotals in here. I think that since DLC 2, maybe 3, these guys have been buffed. Their accuracy was 40% and is now 60%. And this is really a significant upgrade for these guys, as it was always a very high chance to miss with these guys. And now at 60%, they're much more likely to hit and do a lot of damage. They're also very mobile, 70 kph. They have some armor, although not that much, 1 on every side, and a decent amount of autonomy. What I also like in an airborne unit or an AA unit is the VLRA Mistral. They're very cheap, 35 points. They carry more missiles than the Crotal, but the Crotal has a much better range, 700 meters more. Their HE value is slightly higher, but you could still say that in some regards the VLRA Mistral is a better unit. Because it has more missiles, it's cheaper, it has better autonomy, better off-road speed. It does not have any armor, but let's face it, whether you have 1 armor or 0 armor, it doesn't really matter much. A tank or vehicle is going to kill either of these units very quickly. And availability wise, you get slightly more VLRAs than you do get Crotals. But for now, let's stick with these guys because they got a nice range against helicopters. Much more than the VLRA Mistral or the standard Mistral AA infantry. So if we're dealing with a helicopter force, we can use a couple of these guys and shoot them down. Next up, tanks. You only get 1 unit, and he went with the AMX-13 Harpoon. Very old unit, this one. 1974. Main gun is pretty damn terrible at 25% accuracy. Stabilizer didn't exist, or they didn't put it on the tank. Armor penetration is low. Rate of fire is high at 13. I believe that these things have an autoloader, so even as they're going to be panicked, that will not really have an effect on how fast they're going to be firing. It will have an effect on how accurate they're going to be. So this high rate of fire doesn't really matter this much on this unit because its accuracy is so bad. Then it has some ATGMs, but very, very old ones. Low range, 35% accuracy, no stabilizer, and well, a decent armor penetration for a unit this cheap. And a machine gun, but don't expect miracles from this thing either. It is a unit that we can use to support our infantry, but again, don't expect anything because their ground range is only 1500 meters. And the only chance that these things really have at doing some damage is ambushing and flanking maneuvers. Moving on to Reconnaissance. Reconnaissance for an airborne deck is very important because you want to see if you can find some of their AA and be able to take it down, for example with the Commando's Para. He went with 6 of these at Hardened in the Pirate. I would not really take the Pirate with these guys either. Mostly because it might impact availability. For the Commando's Para it doesn't, but for some units it will. and I don't want to have a gunship unit or a unit which has an autocannon for my infantry transport from my reconnaissance units, because they will usually not do fighting unless you're dropping them off in a hot zone, which is again not recommended because they're going to get shot down pretty damn quick. But as they are only 5 points cheaper, I'm going to go with the pirate anyway, because they can be a nice surprise force. They can flank around, they got a decent autonomy of 550. No armor unfortunately, but combine a couple of those autocannons with, for example, the gun that's found on the Cassiope, and you're going to have a nice unit here. So I'm sticking to this one. For more stealthy reconnaissance, we got the front spayers, great units, great stealth, exceptional stealth, very good optics, high speed, trained elite, but usually I just turn all of those weapons off to make sure that they don't give away their position. Then 3 reconnaissance tigers. Expensive units, I'll give you that, but they got good stealth. And that means that they're going to be very hard to detect. And combine that with their medium size means that they're not as easy to lock onto as some other helicopters, like for example the Mi-24 line. Exceptional optics, high speed, and I think that these guys are going to be a nice support unit for other helicopters. And then he has the VBL Mistral. These things are almost a no-brainer. They have very good optics, very good speed, off-road and on-road, some armor, and 6 Mistral surface-to-air missiles, which makes them very surprising, especially if you put this thing in a forward position. You can actually get a couple of air kills before it either might get detected or before you're going to get destroyed. Be careful with them, since you only get 4. It's a low availability, but with 17 reconnaissance units, if we're careful with these, we should have enough. In vehicles, he has the ERC-90 Sergei. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. These things are actually better than the tanks that we have in the tank section. As you can see, the AMX-13 Harpon has 25% accuracy versus 45 on the ERC-90. It has 6 armor penetration versus 11. Rate of fire is almost half, but at least you have a good chance of actually hitting those shots. Better range. Off-road speed is 35 kph better, which is a major difference. They don't carry a stabilizer, unfortunately. They don't have a lot of armor, but they are amphibious. So I would rather take 2 cards of these instead of having another card of Harpons. So I'm just going to delete these guys altogether because I don't think that they are worth spending an activation point on. Let's see if I can spend that point somewhere else. Yeah, maybe in helicopters. Or I'm going to have to liberate another point somewhere else, but I'm not sure I can do that. So that's the Sergei. Then we have the P4 Milan 2. Again, use these as ambushers. Fire off a shot, make sure it hits, and get the hell out. They have a high speed, 110 kph off-road. Their missile accuracy is pretty terrible, so I would not go with 12 of these, but instead with 8, to make sure that that accuracy is going to get some slight buffs. Whatever you do, try to stay away from the Weasel TOW 2 unless you don't mind micromanaging this unit, because while it has some excellent TOW 2 missiles on them for a decent price, its autonomy is terrible. Only 200, and with that, if you want to use these, you're going to have to be refueling them all the time. I don't have time, nor do I want to spend the time on these micromanaging, so I'm not going to use the Weasel TOW 2. Helicopter-wise, we get pretty much all the usual suspects here. We got the Tiger HAD, or the HAD, depending on how you want to pronounce that. This is the ground attack helicopter geared towards anti-tank/anti-vehicle warfare. You can see that by having 8 of these Hot 2 missiles, which have a good accuracy, a decent stabilizer. It's not as good as, for example, the British Lynx TOW 2, but they got a good range, good armor penetration, and they can be fired on the move, although, as mentioned, be careful with that. 24 Sneb rockets. With these you can destroy vehicles or destroy infantry very accurately, and they have a nice stabilizer and accuracy on their main gun. Keep in mind, these things also have good stealth, so you can come from an unexpected angle without being detected at major ranges. So keep these things combined with the Reconnaissance Tigers that you can find here, the PEH-2, and for example one of the other Tigers, the HAP, which also has good stealth, and you're going to have an interesting airborne force which can do a surprising amount of damage. Talking about the HAB, this one is geared towards anti-helicopter warfare slash vehicles, definitely not tanks, as the Snap rocket pods, while they do carry a lot more of them, 44 versus 24, you can see that the pods themselves are physically bigger. They are not doing a lot of damage to HE, so mostly vehicles to destroy those and then to get the infantry. Also the same nice main gun, the GAT-30, good speed, medium optics, just an all-round very nice unit. But keep in mind though that you only get 3 of these, and same goes for the Reconnaissance Tiger. Then he has some Cassiopes, and with these guys you can actually destroy some vehicles. Much more effectively so than the Tiger HAP can or the Tiger had with the rocket pods, because the Cassiope has a very accurate main gun. Not the same range though, 2100 meters versus 1500, but they have a high accuracy, they have 3 armor penetration, they're fast, 250, decent autonomy, no armor of course, but for 40 points, if you support your infantry or your vehicles with these, you're going to have a good chance of destroying some enemy transports, maybe some tanks depending on the angle that you're attacking them from. But if you want to destroy tanks, we're going to use some other unit like the HAD or the BO-105P. These guys carry the same HOT 2 that we found on the HAD. They carry 6 of them and you only pay half price compared to the HAD. He has 6 of them. I think that might be a bit low, especially if you're fighting an armor deck. So I'm going to add 4 more at Veteran, because I liberated that 1 point from the tank section. And then finally he has Gazelle 341F Celtics. These are the ones with the Mistral AA missile, or it's an AA missile, it's not a surface to air in this case. It deals a lot of damage to helicopters, does that at a safe range of 2600 meters. They're extremely fast at 310, but they have low strength, so any AA missile, provided that it has 4 HE damage, will shoot these things down in one go. They are very small though, so that means that they're a little more difficult to hit. But once they get hit, they're going to drop out of the sky very quickly, so be sure that the enemy don't have that much AA, so that you can safely use this unit. Then he has of course a ton of aircraft. We are an airborne deck with a reason. Let's first start from the right side, because this is the easiest to cover. He went with 2 Rafale CF-1s, which are extremely capable air superiority fighters. Everything here is fire and forget, except of course for the main autocannon. 6 short range or medium range air-to-air missiles, 3850 range. 4 long range fire and forget anti-air or air-to-air missiles, 65% accuracy, 5 HE. Exceptional air detection of course, speed 1000, ECM 50 and turn radius 300, which makes them I would say just as capable of any of the other air superiority fighters which are available in the decks. It's very comparable to the Eurofighter, it's very comparable to the Su-27PU, and that's why you pay 180 points for it. He has 2 of them because in the air tab you don't pay as many points as you normally would for air units. And if you have 2 of these, you can have 1 of them on air patrol and the other one just being refueled or repaired or rearmed, depending on what's going on with your units. Supporting air superiority fighters in the form of the F4F KWS. He went with 2 of these at Hardened. They carry less missiles, only 3 AMRAAMs versus the 4 long-range AA that the Rafale carry. Turn radius is worse, ECM is worse, exceptional air detection that's the same, but their speed's a bit lower. And they carry 4 AIM-9Ls, which have slightly lower accuracy than the AA missile carried by the Rafale. But they're nice units. You could go with 1, but I think that 2 at Hardened are definitely going to get the job done. Next up, Seed. Tornado ECR, great anti-radar unit. 50% ECM, it has very good air detection, although you don't really need that. The only reason why you'd want this on a seed plane is to make sure that there are no enemy aircraft coming in. But if you want to send one of these out, make sure you back it up with a Rafale CF1. Don't fly them out in exactly the same path, but keep the Rafale circling over your own lines as a deterrent to the enemy to bring in their air superiority fighters. Next up, a couple of Jaguars, again seaplanes, and I think that you will need these. The reason I'm saying that is because if you lose your Tornado, these things can perform as a sort of backup seaplane. They don't exactly have the same stats. They are half the price. They have a lot less range. They only carry 2 missiles. They have a lot less range on the ground missile or the air-to-ground missile. Better accuracy though. Sorry, no, less accuracy. I was comparing it to the AIM-9L. Less accuracy. Armor penetration is definitely higher, but it doesn't really matter. If this is 20 or 28, you're going to kill that target anyway. Their speed is the same. Their air detection is good versus very good, and their ECM is 30%, so keep that in mind. They're not that good at evading enemy radar. A couple of peace rhines in here to destroy enemy tanks. It feels like I've gone over these units 1,000 times already. Peace rhine, just get this thing for the main weapon, which is the AGM-65D Maverick. Long range air-to-ground missile, tank sniper, large amount of armor penetration, good accuracy, and since you get 2 of these at trained, you can destroy quite a bit of tanks. Just make sure they either escort them with a fighter and or a seaplane, because you will need to have some anti-radar defense. These things have 20% ECM, but it's not going to keep them that safe. Then he has 4 Tornado IDSs. Bit of a high amount, but they are nice units, and I do prefer them over the Mirage 5F. Reason for that is that they have better ECM. They carry a slightly higher or heavier bomb. This one's more of a carpet bomber, which has lower HE and a lower accuracy. These guys drop their bombs closer together with a bit higher accuracy and a bit higher damage that they do, a little higher damage output. They both have an air-to-air missile, but you get this thing mostly as a bomb truck, or at least that's the way I look at it. And getting 4 of these means that you can bomb pretty much any target, and as Welsh mentioned in the deck description, and as I said at the beginning of the video, this is pretty much your flying artillery. That's what you want to use these things for. If you find yourself facing off against an armored deck, you may consider deleting one of these and getting a Super Etendar SEM in, because these things are extremely capable at destroying enemy armor, especially high-end enemy armor. You could say that they are more capable than the Peace Rhine, as they have higher armor penetration of 30 and a better accuracy by 20%, even a better range. Their ECM is a bit lower. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I'm going to go with the Super Etendar SEM here, because that thing has never failed me. Neither has the Peace Rhine really, but the Super Etendar SEM, you get 3 of those. 2 of them if you want to elite them, and that's going to mean that you get 30% accuracy additionally to what you already have here. And that means that their accuracy is going to be 91%. You're going to have an extreme accuracy with these things, so almost a guaranteed hit. I'm going to go with 3 because they usually upvet themselves. And then there's the Alpha Jets. I think that there are no other napalm bombers anyway. Let's see, he wanted to keep these things in. Multi-rolls. Yeah, there's the Mirage 111C, which is comparable to the Alpha Jet. Let's select all. He says the reason the Alpha Jets are in instead of the other napalm bomber is because I work on them. So he's probably training himself to use these. And that means that we're just going to not touch them. I'm going to keep them in. See if he has anything in naval. Yep, he went heavily anti-ship planes. Hornets, F-111Gs, CF-18s, so a lot of anti-ship missiles. Some Lynx HAS-2s with the Sea Skua. I don't think that that is the best option here, as we're using aircraft and not that much infantry. I think that these guys, which also have a lower ground range, might not be the best option here. I would instead go for something like the MOBA. Stuff like this is going to keep your naval zones clean so that other units may be able, or other players might be able to bring in stuff in the naval section. And then he has the Tomcat long range AA fighter, officially classed as an interceptor of course, and that is the range that you want to keep these things at. The reason I'm saying that is because they have a great range on their AIM-54 Phoenix, but their AIM-9Ls are not that great and they only carry 2 of them. Their turn radius is pretty bad at 400 for an air superiority fighter, so try to keep these things at range. They are fire and forget, so bring them in, have them circle over your line. The soonest, or as soon as an enemy brings in an air superiority fighter, a bomber or anything else you want to shoot down, you tell this thing to fire its missiles and evac. That's all you do. Don't get these things to do your dogfighting for you, because that's when we got the Rafales and the F4F4. So with that, I'm eager to try out this deck. If you want to try it out as well, the deck goes in the description down below, as always. And if you have a deck of your own that you want to send in, please do so using the link down in the description. It's the end of the video, so I hope you liked watching it, and if you did, please hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.